and she gave me the chop that I should never see her again, and her gentleman friend was fond of her too, though he was a married man. I dare say she's gone to bits by now. If she could rise and see me with my bad finger, she would cry, and I should say, 'Never mind, ducky, I'm all right.' Oh dear, it's coming on to rain. I do hate a wet Saturday night. Poor women with their nice white stockings and their livings to get," etc., etc. And yet age does not wither this godless old sinner, as people would say it ought to. Whatever life she has led, it has agreed with her very sufficiently. At times she gives us to understand that she is still much solicited. At others she takes quite a different tone. She has not allowed even Joe King so much as to put his lips to hers this 10 years. She would rather have a mutton chop any day. But you should have seen me when I was sweet 17. I was the very moral of my poor dear mother, and she was a pretty woman, though I say it that shouldn't. She had such a splendid mouth of teeth, it was a sin to bury her in her teeth. I only knew of one thing at which she professes to be shocked. It is that her son Tom and his wife Topsy are teaching the baby to swear. "Oh, it's too dreadful awful!" she exclaimed. "I don't know the meaning of the words, but I tell him he's a drunken sot." I believe the old woman in reality rather likes it. "But surely, Mrs. Jupp," said I, "Tom's wife used not to be Topsy. You used to speak of her as Phoebe." "Ah, yes," she answered, "but Phoebe behaved bad, and it's Topsy now." Ernest's daughter Alice married the boy who had been her playmate more than a year ago. Ernest gave them all they said they wanted and a good deal more. They have already presented him with a grandson, and I doubt not will do so with many more. Georgie, though only 21, is owner of a fine steamer which his father has bought for him. He began when about 13, going with old Rollings and Jack in the barge from Rochester to the upper Thames with bricks. Then his father bought him and Jack barges of their own, and then he bought them both ships, and then steamers. I do not exactly know how many people make money by having a steamer, but he does whatever is usual, and from all I can gather makes it pay extremely well. He is a good deal like his father in the face, but without a spark, so far as I have been able to observe, any literary ability. He has a fair sense of humour and abundance of common sense, but his instinct is clearly a practical one. I am not sure that he does not put me in mind almost more of what Theobald would have been if he had been a sailor than of Ernest. Ernest used to go down to Battersby and stay with his father for a few days twice a year until Theobald's death, and the pair continued on excellent terms, in spite of what the neighbouring clergy call the atrocious books which Mr. Ernest Pontifex has written. Perhaps the harmony, or rather absence of discord, which subsisted between the pair was due to the fact that Theobald had never looked into the inside of one of his son's works, and Ernest, of course, never alluded to them in his father's presence. The pair, as I have said, got on excellently, but it was doubtless as well that Ernest's visits were short and not too frequent. Once Theobald wanted Ernest to bring his children, but Ernest knew they would not like it, so this was not done. Sometimes Theobald came up to town on small business matters and paid a visit to Ernest's chambers. He generally brought with him a couple of lettuces or a cabbage or a half a dozen turnips done up in a piece of brown paper, and told Ernest that he knew fresh vegetables were rather hard to get in London, and he had brought him some. Ernest had often explained to him that the vegetables were of no use to him, and that he had rather he would not bring them, but Theobald persisted, I believe through sheer love of doing something which his son did not like, but which was too small to take notice of. He lived until about 12 months ago, when he was found dead in his bed on the morning after having written the following letter to his son. Dear Ernest, I've nothing particular to write about, but your letter has been lying for some days in the limbo of unanswered letters, to wit my pocket, and it's time it was answered. I keep wonderfully well, and I am able to walk my 5 or 6 miles with comfort, but at my age there's no knowing how long it will last, and time flies quickly. I have been busy potting plants all the morning, but this afternoon is wet. What is this horrid government going to do with Ireland? I don't exactly wish they'd blow up Mr Gladstone, but if a mad bull would chivy him there, and he would never come back any more, I should not be sorry. Lord Harrington is not exactly the man I should like to set in his place, but he would be immeasurably better than Gladstone. I miss your sister Charlotte more than I can express. She kept my household accounts, and I could pour out to her all the little worries, and now that Joey is married too, I don't know what I should do if one or the other of them did not come sometimes and take care of me. My only comfort is that Charlotte will make her husband happy, and that he is as nearly worthy of her as a husband can be. Believe me, your affectionate father, Theobald Pontifex. I may say in passing that though Theobald speaks of Charlotte's marriage as though it were recent, it had in reality taken place some 6 years previously, she being then about 38 years old, and her husband about 7 years younger. There was no doubt that Theobald passed peacefully away during his sleep. Can a man who died thus be said to have died at all? He has presented the phenomena of death to other people, but in respect of himself he has not only not died, but he has not even thought that he was going to die. This is not more than half dying, but then neither was his life more than half living. He presented so many of the phenomena of living that I suppose on the whole it would be less trouble to think of him as having been alive than as never having been born at all. But this is only possible because association does not stick to the strict letter of its bond. This, however, was not the general verdict concerning him, and the general verdict is often the truest. Ernest was overwhelmed with expressions of condolence and respect for his father's memory. He never, said Dr. Martin, the old doctor who brought Ernest into the world, spoke an ill word against anyone. He was not only liked, he was beloved by all who had anything to do with him. A more perfectly just and righteously dealing man, said the family solicitor, I have never had anything to do with, nor one more punctual in the discharge of every business obligation. We shall miss him sadly, the bishop wrote to Joey in the very warmest of terms. The poor were in consternation. The well's never missed, said one old woman, till it's dry, and she only said what everyone else felt. Ernest knew that the general regret was unaffected as for a loss which could not be easily repaired. He felt that there were only 3 people in the world who joined insincerely in the tribute of applause, and these were the very 3 who could least show their want of sympathy. I mean Joey, Charlotte, and himself. He felt bitter against himself for being of a mind with either Joey or Charlotte upon any subject, and thankful that he must conceal his being so as far as possible, not because of anything his father had done to him. These grievances were too old to be remembered now, but because he would never allow him to feel towards him as he was always trying to feel. As long as communication was confined to the merest commonplace, all went well, but if these were departed from ever such a little, he invariably felt that his father's instincts showed themselves in immediate opposition to his own. When he was attacked, his father laid whatever stress was possible on everything which his opponents said. If he met with any check, his father was clearly pleased. What the old doctor had said about Theobald speaking ill of no man was perfectly true as regards others than himself, but he knew very well that no one had injured his reputation in